Hello, I am going to show you how to make a rubric for an assignment. Let me start by saying I love rubrics because it's click, 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 and I'm done. And for the most part, having taught this for a while, I kind of know what traps my students are going to fall into. So I already kind of know by my levels, like, okay, a student at this level is probably doing this, or a student at that level is probably doing that. So my rubrics can give some specific feedback of majority of the errors, and I don't have to do a lot of extra work. But what I also like about rubrics is if a student makes a specific mistake that I didn't count on, or if they make a mistake that I feel like needs to be addressed a little bit differently than I do, I can edit the rubric. So I'll show you what I like to do. There's two ways to get to rubrics to make them. One is on the class home page. You just scroll down here to rubrics under assessment. If you're anywhere else, you can also go to tools and course admin. And now we'll see how slow my computer can be. Oh, now it's going to be fast. And we go to rubrics. So either one's fine, doesn't matter, same thing. And I'm using my spring psychology because I know I'm going to need the rubric for this assignment. I'm going to use this one again. So I'm going to start with new rubric. Now, what I like to do when I'm making my rubrics is I like to think about memes and just some fun things. And I like to use language that's really positive and always keeps the kids pushing forward. So like even if they get a negative grade or like a low grade, there's still a lot of, hey, this is okay, you've got this, you can do this sort of thing. And I actually have the rubric on my other page from this semester. So if you see me looking back and forth, that's what I'm doing. So I know that this rubric is going to be for the 4.05 assignment, 4-4. So honestly, that's probably what I'll call it because this name is for me. This is for me to know what it is. And I want to set it to published because that's the only way that I can use it. If you know you're making it, but you're in the process of making it and you want to step away, you can leave it in draft. But I like to publish mine immediately. It just makes it easier for me to find them. So I'm all about that. And if you feel like you need like a description or whatever, that's fine. The levels are the point systems. So how many points? And here's the thing about rubrics, the only downside. Let's say that you've got some things you want to be 2 points and some things you want to be 5 points. Well, a rubrics, you can't really use this style of rubric. Everything has to have the same amount of points. If there's a way to do it that I don't know, please let me know, but I haven't found one yet. So I know that actually for this one, I'm going to need 5 levels, and the criteria are what I'm actually grading it for. And I'm going to grade it for 4 things. I want it to be out of points. And if you don't know in advance, that's totally fine. You just go over here to levels and criteria, and I didn't hit save, so it's not going, it doesn't always fix it if you don't hit save first. But look, it's already set it up for me. But if I needed to, I could add a level, add a criteria, absolutely no problem. So the way I like to do this is now set up the way I want it, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, that's how I want my points to go. Actually, I take it back. I'm gonna change his points just a little bit. I'll show you how. But I'm gonna go ahead and start with a criterion. I like to do mine from the criterion point of view. And I will also tell you that a lot of times I like to write it out by hand or on Word before I do it when I've never done one before, because then I can kind of, in my opinion, tweak it better. That's just me. So the first thing I want to know is I'm having my students summarize the feedback from their websites. So they're actually going to take 3 personality tests, and part of what they have to do is just tell me about what they found from the website. All right, so let's look at level 5. Now here's the thing. The description is what I'm going to see. The feedback is what it's going to tell the students. So let's say that I want to tell the student that they summarize each website and explain, sorry, how it describes you fully. Okay, so I feel like for a level 5, they did exactly what they were asked for and were able to answer all of the parts. Now, if I put that here in description, that's for me to see. But when I click it, it's not going to show to the student unless it's in feedback. So you want to make sure that you do both parts. So for level 4, I'm going to say that they summarize 2 out of 3 websites and explains how they describe you. Or I can type really, rises all 3 websites, but does not explain how they describe you fully. So there's actually 2 kind of parts to this. Now again, if I put that in the description, I got to put it over here in the feedback. So moving down here very quickly, I think I can copy and paste this. Let's see if this will work. And copy and paste over here. So as I move down my levels, these are where I notice that most of my students have issues. For example, they fail to do all the tests that they need, or in some cases like this one, there's deliberately 2 tests that are very similar, and so they'll just try to use the same test twice, even though I specifically tell them not to do it. And what I can do is, let's say that when a student is, I look at it, I see they summarize 2 out of 3 websites, but not this part here, I can delete that when I edit it. So I put that in for myself. All right, my last level is no attempt. All right, so what I've done now, let me show you as it comes up, is right here you'll see that it gives me the description, but also when I click on it, I'll get the feedback. And I can go in and I can do this from each situation. Now, I told you that I wasn't thrilled with these point levels, and I can do this. I can go in and edit level. I just clicked that little downward triangle. So I know, for example, I want this to be 2.5 points each. So same thing. Here, I'm going to want this to be a 1-pointer, so I take this actions for level 2, this little triangle, click edit level. Sorry, my face is getting in the way there. And I know this is going to be a 1-pointer. And my last one, move myself up there so I don't bother you anymore. Oops, I made a mistake here. Okay, sorry. I do this sometimes. Let me go back. So I actually want level 1 to be 0 points, but what it did was it switched the 2 because I made that 1 point. So I should have warned you to go from the bottom up instead of the top down. So go from the smaller amount of points up instead of the top down in this case. And that was my mistake, sorry. So now I've got it where I want it. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to edit each of these criterion. Or I could do it this way if I prefer. I could edit the level. So if you'd rather edit each one as you go. Now the only thing is I can't edit the criterion from here, which is why I prefer to edit it by criterion versus editing it by level. So I would prefer to do it like this. And as you see, I could add criterion. I could add one above or below. Okay, so I can add it, I can add the name there, and then I can go through, and remember, I want to make sure that whatever I want the students to see is in feedback. So let me hop back here. Maybe, maybe not. Okay, so as you can see, I can reorder the criteria. So like if I put things out of order, if I want to change the level order, I always like to put the largest one up at the top. The rationale I've always heard is that you want students to see what the best would be first, as opposed to seeing what the worst would be and then moving up. So I always go with the best first, but that's up to you. Now, let's say that I want the students to see a response from me. Okay, so that's where I use this down here at overall score. Now, if I tell a student you're level 5, 5 out of what? Like 5 out of 5, 5 out of 10, it's kind of hard to know. So I like to change the level names to something that really lets them kind of know what I think about what they did. And so in this case, I'm just picking all of this up here, see if it'll work. It'll let me copy and paste it from the one to the other. Remember, if I put it in description, that's going to show for me, so I'm going to put it in description and feedback. So let's see what happens if I do this. Did it work? Yay, it did. So I copied and pasted it. And so I know that if they choose this one, I know that they understood the concepts of scientific validity and scientific reliability as it applies to tests or experiments versus, how we use it in everyday life. And they may have told me, because they get to actually tell me in here, like, oh, I thought these personality tests were amazing, or man, that was the biggest waste of my time. So they may have learned a lot, they may not have learned a lot. And so I feel like at this stage, between this and what they're going to get from each of the feedbacks of each of the parts, I've given them a lot of information. And of course, we remember, put it in down here. So now, when I click the buttons, okay, at the end, if they got 19 points or more, they're going to see this particular one. And so, for example, let me go ahead and edit this level. In this case, I actually want to edit from, because I'm not changing the points too much, it's okay if I edit from the top down, but when you're changing the points and you're going to change them a lot, you want to edit from the bottom up in terms of your points, because it will give you less problems with that. So, I know that if they're hitting this level of 16 points or more, they're probably struggling a little bit with validity and reliability, but chances are good that they can do that. Okay, so let me see if I can switch this and bring you this class. And you can see here where I've already got it finished, and I've put in like some fun little things. And I didn't change all of these levels. Like I was just talking about, that's something I actually just came up with very recently. But I might put here like keep trying. Level 2 might be, I'd love to see you do this again. And you can see it's 1 point or more, because these are the kids who maybe didn't finish it all the way. And then level 0 is the level 1. This would be people who turned it in blank. Sometimes in the uploading process it happens. Sometimes we turn things in because we don't like the overdue. You know how that goes. All right, so then how do I use it? I'm going to go to assignments, and I'm going to pick an assignment that I didn't actually use, or I will be using, so we can see. Yeah, that'll work. I don't really use the assignments in Unit 1 much. Okay, so I would go here to view submissions. Oh, you know what? This is foolish. I can't do it from here. Never mind. Let's try this again. All right. So I'm going to go to the assignment I was just discussing with you here. And I'm going to try to move this so that I can't show you any student names. So I'm sorry. Give me 1 second here. Oh, of course, it's going to give me all kinds of fits. All right. Put our lovely face over here. And so what I would do, sorry guys, is in here I would go to, if there's no rubric associated, it will say no rubric associated. And so I can click associate rubric and I can grab the rubric that I want. But when I'm looking at the rubric itself, it'll come up kind of small like this. But what I really like about the way they've done it now is that it's a separate window. It used to be if I used the rubric, it was a pain in the neck, because in order to see what was underneath it, I had to keep clicking on it to kind of like make it gray out a little bit so I could see. But what I really like now is that they allow me to use it as a different window. So I have two screens, so I could put one up on the left and one like on the right, and I can see it. And so this student did a fabulous job with their work. I clicked, and if I happen to know that the student, if I've read through it and I see that the student's got all the parts that they need and they're going to get 100, my rule of thumb is to click from the bottom. I know that may sound kind of weird, but every time you click and it puts in the feedback, as you can see over here, it'll expand it, so you can't always see it at the end. And then you can see the student is going to see this one here. This is what's going to come up for them. So I click save and record. It won't hurt anything to do it again. And then down here, I have to scroll down, 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 down. I would click publish if it was the first time, but in this case, since it'd be the second, it would be update. So I hope that this helped you guys out. I hope that you understand rubrics, and if you have any questions, please let me know.